The Batman is a masterpiece. Hey guys, Derek here. We are reviewing The Batman. I've seen this movie twice in theaters now, and that is something I rarely do. Most of the time, if I go see a movie, I see it once, and then I wait until it comes out on like DVD or streaming or whatever. The only times I see movies multiple times is if I am like in love with these movies. And I saw The Batman twice in 2 days, which is also extra rare because it's a 3-hour movie. But I can confidently say that this movie is a masterpiece. It is immediately the best Batman movie ever made, which is another strong statement considering that The Dark Knight exists. But I personally believe this is a better film than The Dark Knight, which also means, in my personal opinion, it is the best superhero movie ever made. So that would mean my rankings go The Batman, The Dark Knight, then Spider-Man 2, and then Logan. This movie is directed by Matt Reeves, who you may know from directing a couple of the Planet of the Apes movies. He also directed Cloverfield. It stars Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne / Batman, more so Batman than Bruce Wayne. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, Selena Kyle. Paul Dano plays the Riddler. Jeffrey Wright turns in a great performance as Jim Gordon. We also have really solid performances from actors like Colin Farrell as the Penguin, who he's like unrecognizable as the Penguin. John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. Andy Serkis does a great job playing Alfred in his limited screen time. And even Barry Keoghan as an unnamed Gotham Arkham prisoner. He turns in a performance in his very minuscule screen time that is intriguing, definitely. But The Batman, what you've probably heard of it already, it is a long movie. This is like 2 hours and 40 some minutes, not including credits. If you wait for the credits, it's like 2 hours and 55 minutes or something like that. And to its core, it is a slow burn detective noir story starring Batman and Jim Gordon. If you have seen films like Zodiac or Seven, it is very much in line with things like that, where throughout most of the film, Batman and Jim Gordon are trying to follow the clues and the hints from Paul Dano's Riddler, trying to stop him as he goes through his killing spree and trying to uncover the secrets behind why he's doing it. I do have a few nitpicks here and there, but the severity of those nitpicks are so small compared to how wonderful I think this movie is that they really don't mean anything to me. And I will get to those a little bit later in the spoiler section of this review. But like I mentioned, this is a slow burn detective story, and Batman and Jim Gordon, it follows them through most of the movie. I think Robert Pattinson is in almost every scene of this movie. Like 90% of the scenes of this movie, Robert Pattinson is in them. I thought Robert Pattinson did a fantastic job as the Batman. He looks great in the cowl, in the costume. He performs well, both physically and like acting wise. He's a very solemn Batman, almost like he's not concerned. He's not concerned at all with being Bruce Wayne. I saw a few complaints from people saying that the Bruce Wayne, the billionaire persona, is kind of non-existent in this film, and that's kind of the point. This is year one, year two of Batman. He hasn't crafted that Bruce Wayne mask yet, right? Like, if you read the comics or watched any of the animated stuff, you know that Batman is who he feels that he truly is. Like, he thinks that Bruce Wayne is the mask, and so it makes sense that this early in his Batman career, he hasn't crafted that Bruce Wayne persona. And so you spend most of this film following Batman as Batman. Like, he's in the suit for most of the film, trying to piece together the clues of what is going on with the Riddler. What does this grander story mean? And how is he connected to it? How is his family connected to it? And it truly leads you from this place where at the beginning of the movie, he's just a vigilante trying to dole out the vengeance that he feels the city deserves for its corruptness and It's, you know, what it has done to his family and himself, and how he never wants that to happen to other people. And over the course of the movie, he goes through this change in this arc to going from someone who doesn't care about the public perception of himself to becoming a hero of Gotham, and kind of somewhat embracing that role by the end of the film. Now, while most of the film does center on him and Jim Gordon, a lot of it also centers on him and Selena Kyle, and the role that she plays in uncovering this conspiracy as well. I thought Zoe Kravitz did a fantastic job. I think like every single time Zoe Kravitz came on screen, I was like, yup. Oh, let's go. She's just fantastic. Her performance, I think, is very understated. Like, she's never too like out there. She's definitely not the Halle Berry Catwoman, or some of the older Catwomans where they're like so out there and like into the cat theme. I think she's more on the side of like Anne Hathaway's Catwoman, where it's kind of just like a part of the persona, and she's really just like this thief. And some of her storyline is very interesting into how that plays into the larger conspiracy as well. And the way her and Batman work together it's very appealing. She did have one line of dialogue later in the film that I know people are upset about. All these dumb right-wing idiots are so mad that Catwoman, you know, this isn't necessarily a spoiler. It doesn't give away any plot points, but Catwoman calls out the fact that like the power structure of Gotham does not care about the poor people that are getting hurt. It just cares about these rich white men that are in charge, right? Like the commissioner, the mayor, the billionaire philanthropist, right? Like the system that is set up doesn't care about the low people, like Catwoman. And there's already a bunch of people trying to be like, oh, Batman's woke. No, shut up. Like, it's one line of dialogue and she's right. So the two main dynamics throughout the film are between Batman and Catwoman, and Batman and Jim Gordon. Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon also turns in a really fantastic performance, also very, very understated, where like a lot of what he brings to the table is almost like the everyman persona of this storyline, where he's kind of just trying to make it through the day almost. You know, Batman has these ideals and stuff. There's a moment where he's like, oh, no guns, and Jim's like, yeah, man, that's your thing. Like, I'm not doing that, man. And he's trying to bridge the gap for a lot of the movie between the police department and Batman, and trying to make sure these things don't get too out of hand. And over the course of the film, Batman and Jim Gordon are kind of realizing that they are two of the only people that they can trust in this whole town, in this whole city, right? And seeing them come together to help save the day in the end is equally as satisfying as Batman and Catwoman coming together as well. One thing about this film that I really appreciated compared to, say, the Christopher Nolan Batman films is that Gotham feels like Gotham. If you've ever read the comics, again, I keep saying that, if you've ever read the comics or watched any of the animated stuff, Gotham City feels almost like its own character in a sense. Like, Gotham is a supporting character in this film. It is very stylistic, very gritty and dark and dirty, and it very much feels like a distinct Gotham City. The Christopher Nolan films, Gotham kind of just felt like any city in America, honestly. They were also a little too like clean and sophisticated. This is very much a dirty, corrupt Gotham. Let's talk a little bit about the action. I thought the action was pretty well done. Like I said, there isn't a lot of it. This is not like a typical like Marvel movie where there's a decent chunk of action throughout the film, or like some of the other DC films where there's a lot of action. You know, you see those movies and you're like, oh, superhero movie, there's gonna be a lot of fighting. There's gonna be a big fight in Act 1, 2, and 3, like big things. This film doesn't necessarily have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. It's kind of just like a throughout 3-hour film. and the action is put in there sparsely. Like I said, this is a slow burn detective story. So, the main focus of this movie is not watch Batman beat people up. He does beat people up because he is Batman, but that's not the focus. But when they do use it, it is very well done. I think the introduction to Batman in this film is probably the best introduction to a superhero in any superhero movie ever made. Just the way they focus on the darkness of the shadows, watching him come out of those shadows and then take on a group of people on his own. He isn't perfect, he doesn't just like single-handedly destroy these people. This isn't the warehouse scene in Batman versus Superman, right? Like, he's not annihilating these people. He's taken a few hits here and there, but he comes out on top in the end, and is still just like an intimidating, visceral experience, right? He is brutal, but not like, he doesn't kill people. There's a fight scene in multiple fight scenes in the club where he's taking multiple people on, and he is not, he's not pulling his punches, but he's not like taking guns and shooting people, right? The climactic fight scene at the end is really well done as well, taking on a bunch of people at once, and saving the day, sacrificing himself in a sense for the people of Gotham. But probably the mountaintop action piece of this movie is the car chase sequence in roughly like the middle, a little past the middle of the film, between him and the Penguin. So right off the bat, the introduction of the Batmobile in this movie is almost as good, if not better, than the introduction of Batman himself at the beginning of the film. Just hearing the growl of this muscle car as it starts up, and then the whine of like the jet engine on the back, and seeing the lighting of it and the flames coming out, and just like the intimidation tactic. The first time I watched it, I actually thought he stalled the car, but on the second watch through, I saw that he actually like jumped the car forward, like as an intimidation tactic. And the chase sequence, very, very visceral. They mounted the cameras on either the side of the car or inside the car to focus very much on just these two perspectives. I know a lot of car chase sequences, it'll show wide shots and it'll look like these cars are moving like 10 miles an hour. They look like they're going so slow. This film, very much the opposite. They were moving quick. They were going fast. They were smashing through stuff. And then, you've seen it in the trailers, the part where the car flips in the air and crashes was visceral and incredible. Don't know how he lived. I guess that's one of the fantastical elements of this movie, because while it is very, very, very gritty and down to earth, it has some moments here and there where you're like, oh, this is a comic book movie. And one of those is the Penguin surviving that car crash, because he flipped like 55 times and no airbags went off. So crazy. But then Batman walks up to this car, and it frames him upside down like a bat, and the score is going crazy. The score is amazing in this film. But it's so fantastic that it's just like, oh. Like, if this movie was like a 2-hour film, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a normal amount of action for a 2-hour superhero movie. But this movie is 3 hours long. So it feels like the action scenes are few and far between, but dang, do they work real well. My only nitpick is Catwoman. Her action sequences, they weren't bad. Trust me, they were not bad, but you could definitely tell in the movie that some of Catwoman's like fight choreography definitely had to be sped up. Like scenes that featured her, sometimes if she did like a jump kick, you could see her legs move, and it's just like it's not CGI'd, it's just sped up, so it looks a little awkward. And there's a moment where I think Batman smashes someone's head against the table, but it's like a scene where Catwoman's in it, and that is a little sped up. That's the only nitpick in terms of action, but it was a little noticeable. Visually, this movie was fantastic. I can't say enough positive things about this movie. I freaking loved it. I would give this movie a 10 out of 10 every day of the week and twice on Sundays. I thought every performance that was turned in was wonderful. I don't think there's a negative performance in this entire movie. The visuals were fantastic. Gotham was fantastic. Stylistically, it is a wonderful, beautiful movie to watch, and it definitely feels like you are going through this event with Batman. It takes over about the course of a little less than a week, and you feel every moment of this film. The desperation and the confusion of Robert Pattinson's Batman, of just trying to get a hold of what's going on and figuring out what's happening. He spends a lot of time just watching people. Some moments are a little weird, like when he watches Catwoman change. That's a little creepy, and I think everyone knows that it's creepy. They're not trying to play that off as a normal thing. But again, I can't talk well enough about this. I haven't even mentioned Paul Dano in this movie is creepy. he's so good in this movie as the Riddler, and it's not like a Jim Carrey Riddler where he's over the top and weird and out there and wild. He is very much like a creepy internet guy. He's like a 4chan creeper, and he, again, like I mentioned, his motivations aren't necessarily like ironclad, right? Like, it's not like you're like, oh, I completely understand why he's doing this. You're like, oh, I mean, okay, they're stretching it a little bit, but that's whatever. He is so deranged and weird. He's not quite at the level of Heath Ledger's Joker, right? Like, I don't know if any singular performance is going to top Heath Ledger's Joker, but Paul Dano turns in a creepy performance as the Riddler. It's great. All right, so if you've made it to this part of if you've made it to this part of the review, I'm going to dive into some spoilers. I don't know if there's much to talk about in terms of spoilers. I guess with the spoilers, I can talk about a few of the nitpicks that I had in terms of, say, like the Riddler's motivations, right? So if you are at this point, consider this spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. It's a masterpiece, 10 out of 10, freaking love it. But okay, so the Riddler, he's an orphan, and with the Gotham renewal storyline, I guess, the lower class citizens of Gotham were promised that life would get better, and with the death of Thomas Wayne and all these other parties coming in to kind of take ownership of all this $1 billion and fund their crime empires and all that, the lower class citizens of Gotham never got that change. Like, they never got that renewal. And as an orphan, I guess the Paul Dano's Riddler definitely felt jaded by that, right? Like, it's not a great feeling to be left out. And then as he grows up harboring these feelings, obviously, and then as an adult, he is like a financial, not a financial analyst, but like I forgot what the exact term they used for his like profession, but he's someone who like looks at the money, right? Like, he knows where the money is coming from. That's how he knows all these things to hold these people hostage, blackmail wise, and how he is able to release all their secrets and all that jazz. I would personally say that his motivations for doing all this, like his motivations for killing all these people and leading the Batman through this cat and mouse chase, are just a little weak. Just a tiny bit. I did not overall have a problem, because the main point of his performance is not why is he doing this. Like, obviously Batman's wondering, why are you doing this? But like, the point of us as the viewer is not to say, why is he doing this? The point is just to be like, this dude's messed up, right? Like, he's crazy. I talked a little bit about Catwoman's action scenes, how they weren't always they weren't bad, but you noticed the fact that they were sped up a little bit. That's just a tiny little nitpick. Another nitpick, I kind of wish Alfred was in more of this movie. I wish the Penguin was in a little bit more of this movie. Pretty much all the side characters I thought could have used a little bit extra screen time. Like I said, Robert Pattinson's Batman is in the vast majority of this film. Like, there's rarely a moment in this film where you are not following him as he progresses through this investigation. So I thought the side characters could have used a little bit more priority, but overall, again, not super important. There is the scene after Batman escapes the police department where he uses the wingsuit to fly. Looked great up until the point where he like hits the train and like smashes to the ground. That looked a little janky and noticeable, but otherwise not important. Still looked great. And I think my only other nitpick is as much as I am intrigued by Barry Keoghan's portrayal of the Joker, I don't know if he needed to be in the end of this film. Well, okay. I mean, I guess thematically he did. Like, I guess Matt Reeves talked about in an interview where the point of him being in the end of that film is to show that as much as like Batman is now a hero and a large portion of the city might be looking upon him favorably, there is still bad things happening in Gotham and still horrible things still to come. So thematically, that makes sense to why he is in the end of this film. I just don't know if it necessarily needed to be the Joker. I think there could have been another way to show that bad things are still coming, because I don't necessarily want this film and its possible sequel / trequel trilogy. I don't necessarily want it to follow almost the exact same process of the Christopher Nolan films, where they went Batman Begins, and then the second one was the one that featured the Joker. I would almost prefer like the third one to feature the Joker, or if they make 4, I don't know. I really want like the Court of Owls to get featured in one of these films. That would be really cool. I just think, I don't know if the Joker needs to be like in all these things. Again, small nitpick, doesn't really matter. I'm also still intrigued about what he will bring to the table as the Joker, so that's fun. A few of my favorite moments in this film, again, the introduction of Batman, the way he comes out of these shadows, third time's the charm, right? Like the city is afraid of him. They're afraid of the shadows. And the two instances before, the guy looks at the robber of the gas station or whatever, looks at the shadows, and he's expecting Batman to be in there, so he doesn't want to run into the shadows. And then the next time, the spray paint guy looks at the shadow, he's not going to go get his paint can because he thinks Batman's in there. And then the third time's the charm, when Batman actually comes out of the shadows, and it's just this intimidating, frightening presence, and you're like, oh my god. Like, this is insane. Another fantastic moment, the car chase. Like I said, when the initial moment when the Batmobile lights up, fantastic, loved it. And then when he's walking through with the flames in the background, fantastic. I also really enjoyed the moment where he's leading the citizens of Gotham through the water after he saves them. He's got his flare in the air, and it's a top-down view of Batman alone in front and everyone else following him, and it's just like, yes, like freaking incredible. Like, he goes from being this lone vigilante that doesn't care about his perception to now being viewed and almost kind of accepting the fact that he is Gotham's hero and that he is needed by Gotham. Fantastic. I thought Colin Farrell was great. He was weirdly really funny as the Penguin, like when he's just roasting them for not knowing perfect Spanish. And then he waddles away like a penguin because his ankles are still tied up. Freaking great. Again, I didn't have many, if any, complaints about this movie. This movie is practically almost flawless in my eyes. I loved it so much. It is a 10 to 15 out of 10. Best Batman movie ever made. Probably the best superhero movie ever made. I did a quickie review summary on my Twitter, so if you're interested in that, check out my Twitter. It is just linked, I think, on my banner or whatever. I also made that into a post on the community tab, so if you are ever interested in my opinion, my quick opinion on these big movies as soon as they come out. I usually always post about them immediately out of the theaters. So again, like I said, The Batman is a masterpiece in almost every sense of the word. I think it's not perfect, but it is the best Batman movie ever made. And that's just my personal opinion. If you disagree, definitely let me know in the comments what you thought of the movie. I'm very interested to see how you guys feel about it. Yeah, but that's just my opinion. Thank you for watching. If you liked my review of the Batman, please leave a like on the video. That means a ton to me. If you are new here and you want to see more reviews from me or more reactions from me, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you're notified when I upload. And then if you want to support me even further, consider checking out my Patreon. On my Patreon, you can do things like vote in polls for what shows I watch next. You get full uncut versions of every single reaction I put on the channel. And you can get featured in every single one of my videos. But other than that, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.